toe to toe, throw down on the mat. Check the replay, run it back. We gotta check the stats. Hey, do this every day. We ain't come to play. This is sports talk, and we love talking MMA. Everything fantasy sports. Dopest show that I know. With Electric Dave and talented Mr. Taco. Let's go. Hey, G.
What's up, everybody? This is the talented Mr. Taco on the Daily Sporting for another edition of This Week in Fantasy Basketball. We're getting you guys ready for the fantasy basketball playoffs. As we know, most people are in their semifinals. Some people are in their finals. Other people are in their first week of their playoffs. But we know this weekend's going to get nice and crazy. We've been seeing a lot of benchings. We've been seeing a lot of resting. We've been seeing a lot of injuries. And it's set up for an interesting dynamic as we head into the final stretch of this week. Now, what I currently have for you is one of my friend's rosters. He's been asking for a little advice. So what I decided to do is I'm going to come on live. I'm going to break it down for you guys, give you some of the perspectives of what I'm looking at as possible moves that he can make in order to come back in his current matchup. Currently, he's down 6-3, but it's not an insurmountable amount. But what he does need to do is he needs to maximize his pickups in order to, get the most out of his roster. And I think that's going to be the biggest question. Who is he going to be able to drop in order to pick up somebody? Someone when you initially drop, when you look at it, is Kelly Oubre Jr. Kelly Oubre is rostered in 86% of leagues. Over his last couple of games, he's been pretty solid, but in his last game, he really did throw up a stinker. When we're looking at his schedule going up, he does have games on the 29th, which was today, and he didn't play, and then the 1st, okay, and then he's playing on the 3rd. So if we take a quick look here, the 3rd is a Monday, so that means he won't be playing for this week. So if you're desperately in need of getting some points and getting some categories taken care of, Kelly Oubre has put himself in the position of being able to be cut. You have to see what moves you have left and what you have to do. He'd be one of the last guys that I would cut, but he's reached cut territory, especially as we're grinding down into these final weeks of the playoffs. Okay, another player that we have to look at here is Danny Green. Danny Green has been a solid guy that I've liked to stream throughout the season. He's been a guy that I've been able to rely upon as a solid, categories-based guy. But since we now have Simmons back, we have Harris back, and we have Embiid back, the shot totals for him just really aren't there. When we look at his point scoring, it's been down. Over his last 3 games that he's actually played, he scored 5 points, 5 points, and 0 points. Before that, he's put up some numbers, but let's keep in mind that Harris was missing some games during that period of time, which did lead to his increased stat totals. If we look at what was happening before then, he had a couple of games where he was tailoring off. So what I would suggest here is guys like Danny Green would be someone that I would definitely drop. He'd be the first man that's coming off this lineup. Okay, another guy here, Corey Joseph, has been playing pretty interesting. And if you look at what he did in his last game, in 22 minutes, he scored 15 points, had 1 rebound, 4 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, only 1 turnover. So that's pretty solid numbers. And I don't think Corey Joseph is the guy that you really need to worry about getting off your lineup. He didn't play on the 29th because of rest, which is definitely a killer, especially when he's not even a main component to that team. But coming up, he does have a game on the 1st. What I would suggest is after the 1st, I would jettison him and definitely pick up someone for the 2nd. So that's definitely your 2nd move right there. All right, but let me just see how many moves you actually have. So let me go to his team. All right, and this is exactly what you guys need to be doing in your leagues, and these are the ways you can evaluate on how you can win and what you can do. So look, he's down 6-3, okay? Let's look at his team, what he has available. So right now, he had a couple of guys that were out. Malcolm Brogdon. What's going on with Malcolm Brogdon? Sore right hamstring, will not return. Okay, so this is pretty scary right here. Hopefully this isn't a long-term issue. Yeah, so Malcolm Brogdon going down tonight is definitely a very crazy thing to note. Okay, I think you can't drop him yet because if he comes back quickly, you're going to want to play him. Okay, but at the same point in time, you're not going to be able to hold tight and survive without having a guy like that. I see that Patty Mills has not been good. So honestly, what I would do is I would take a guy like Patty Mills. I would take a guy like Danny Green. I would drop both of them. I would look at picking up guys. Now let's go to your matchups. Okay, real quick. Hold on. We'll pull this up. When we go to your matchup, you're down in free throw percentage. It's you're looking at almost like 10%. So it's a decent amount that you're down, but I think that overall it's not a category that I'm going to really shoot for. I mean, you're right now killing it with low turnovers, blocks your 7 back, assists your 8 back, points you are 25 plus 45 puts you at 50, 60. You're 60 points back. So it's not like you're that far back in points or that far back in assists or that far back in blocks. Realistically, what you want to do is you probably want to add a big man that could get you some shot blocks, and you want to add a guard that's going to be able to get you some assists. Let's take a look and see what's on the waiver wire that you might be able to grab. All right, so let's see last 7 days average. And let's look at shot blocks. So Samson, what's wrong with him? Head injury. He's not returning. They don't play another game till the 1st. That's really not a good pickup for you. Richardson, what's going on with Richardson? Richardson, hamstring tightness returned. Okay, Richardson is going to be an interesting play, especially if Dorian Finney-Smith is going to be out, which he currently is. Especially if you're chasing block shots and rebounds, he's an interesting play. But I don't think he's, probably the best upside play. Who else do we have here for blocks? Favors. Let's see, 2 blocks, 1 block, 2 blocks. I mean, if you're streaming for blocks, I think that Favors is the guy, but let's just go back here and just see one thing for you. You're 7 blocks back. Okay. You're down 6-3. If you take 2 categories, you're up 5-4. So you got to shoot for 2 categories. The easiest categories to get are assists, and either going to be points or rebounds because blocks are the hardest one to predict. Going back to players, let's see. Rebounds, Cousins. Let's see, Cousins. Now, Cousins becomes an interesting play for you because of the fact he's getting these rebounds and he's getting some burn. So I think if you're going to stream for rebounds, Cousins is definitely an interesting play. Hamidou Diallo. Hernan Gomez, he's another guy that I've been really liking lately. If we look at what he's been doing, he's been getting, 30-plus minutes over his last couple of games. He can get you that double-double type potential. He really doesn't kill you anywhere. Normally, he's not getting you that many turnovers, and he's not a horrible free throw shooter. So Willie Hernan Gomez, or Guillermo Hernan Gomez, as he goes by now, is definitely an interesting play and pickup. He is playing a game on the 1st and on the 3rd. So we're starting to cut it close. The 3rd puts him in Monday. So this would be a guy that you pick up for a Saturday lineup. Now, the good thing is you have until 3 a.m. East Coast, which is midnight West Coast, before roster moves go in. So definitely at the end of the night, you want to maximize your roster as soon as possible. You got to understand now that as we're getting closer into the weekend, there's going to be only 3 days left. So if you're going to want to start streaming and picking up guys and making moves in order to maximize your moves, you're definitely going to want to start making them tonight. So I definitely would, just even if I'm looking at guys that are going to be available tomorrow, Derek Favors, because he gets you the rebound upside and the block upside. I think definitely if tomorrow you're looking for a guy, Derek Favors is an interesting play, especially for you, Joe. Let's take a look here. Solomon Hill. Solomon Hill has been getting decent amount of minutes lately. He gets you some rebounds. He doesn't really get you much of anything. This is a real desperation play. But if you're streaming for blocks, I can't even say that because he has like 2 blocks and like for forever. He's really not much of anything. But he's getting decent minutes, which makes it an interesting perspective. And he is getting some rebounds. Kevon Looney, let's see what's going on here. He's been getting good minutes, but he's not putting up any numbers. So I don't really think you can trust him. If you are going for rebounds, though, he has had a really good stretch. The last couple of games, he hasn't been that good, but they are facing Houston in his next game. So if you are streaming for rebounds, Kevon Looney could definitely be an interesting play and pickup for you. Powell, let's see, Powell's really not doing much with this opportunity. I think whatchamacallit, Kristaps Porzingis ended up coming back, and he wasn't actually as injured as many people were believed to think off of the initial reaction that we saw. So that's definitely a hit to his value, and people that made the pickups for him early, just because he didn't really hold through on that value. Hernan Gomez, because yeah, I definitely agree. Hernan Gomez, because Adams is injured. He's been getting a lot of burn and being pretty good. Now, the one thing that I do say about Favors, and why I would be interested, is because if you're streaming for rebounds and blocks, he's been able to actually put that up and be consistent with it. His block totals over his last couple of games has been pretty good, and it's hard to find blocks on the waiver wire. So even though he does get limited time, if you are streaming for, let's just say, blocks and rebounds, he would be probably one of the first guys that I would think about playing, because he doesn't need a lot of time. It's almost like Reggie Williams. They don't need a lot of time to be effective, but what they can do is they can give you some of these stats that we're really not getting out of the other guys on the wire, because as we see here, if we just sort by the blocks, hold on. Okay, what's going on? Okay, let's get that done. If we just sort by blocks, he is one of the top 4 or 5 up there right now. Now, this guy right here has gotten no real burn, so it's kind of hard to give him any reps. Samson, he's out and been injured, so it's kind of slim pickings when you are streaming for blocks with Willie Cauley-Stein. Now that KP's back, he doesn't even get any burn. So it's tricky, and I think that's one of the harder ones to go for. That's why when I look at this matchup, if you got to win 2, the 2 I'd be going for is rebounds, and I'd be going for assists with the outside shot at points. But the cool thing about a guy like Favors, if you're able to get him in your lineup, is that he gets your rebounds and blocks, and you kind of go outside on blocks. Let me just see one thing here. And the thing is, you do have Lopez there, who's a big shot blocker, and Embiid. So you do have an outside chance at it, but the biggest question is Stewart right now. He's been an absolute monster over these last couple of games. 3 blocks, 4 blocks, 2 blocks, 2 blocks. So as long as Stewart is getting that rostership, I think that it's going to be hard sailings, because Stewart by himself and Porter Jr. Jesus, Porter Jr. is balling right now. Wow. This week alone, Porter Jr. has 9 3-pointers made, 82 points, 22 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 5 blocks, only 7 turnovers, while shooting 54% from the field and 81% from the free throw line. That's insane, guys. Michael Porter Jr.'s breakout is real, and it's happening right now. Definitely scary if I have to face him in the finals, because I am on the other side of this bracket. But yeah, I just wanted to really break down, some of the things that I saw going on in this team. Like I said, you want to go for points, you want to go for rebounds, you want to go for assists. Favors was that outside guy shot if you did want to go for some blocks. Hayes, this is too crazy to trust, because they sat him. Now they're playing him. It's really hard to tell what they're doing with a guy like Hayes. So to stream a guy like that is very, very risky. Rondo has been pretty solid when he gets his playing time, so he does get you assists. So if you need looking at it, you might want to pick up one of these point guards and one of those big men and just roll with it. I think Campazzo has probably the best upside as far as assists are concerned. He gets you some points. He doesn't kill you in your percentages. So I would definitely say Campazzo is an ad for you. I would definitely say that getting one of those guys, maybe even like a Looney or Hernan Gomez. Hernan Gomez definitely is probably the number 1. Looney is maybe like a number 2. Big men that you'd be looking at in order to get some rebounds. That's exactly where I'd be going, and then trying to just catch up on points. You have a lot of guys that'll naturally give you some block shots, so that's why a guy like Favors doesn't really hurt you that much, because if you can throw a couple of block shots in here, that could make the difference of winning and losing. Block shots are a very fine line. Okay. I guess quickly I'll just show you guys my matchup and what's going on here. So far so good for me. I'm just lucky that even though I wavered for Dorian Finney-Smith and I was expecting him to play and he's out today. So far so good. Kyle Anderson is starting to worry me in his last couple of games. He's definitely starting to fall off. His minutes are starting to go down now that Jaren Jackson Jr. is back. And I think it's going to be a big question on how long he can stay in rosters. Pretty much his next back-to-back, 30-1. So that's Friday, and Saturday is really going to be the last evaluation period for him. For me, honestly, if he doesn't show much life during that period of time, it's going to be an easy drop. If he shows some life, it does make things just a little bit harder. Bobby Portis is holding on to value for dear life. He's still on again, off again, but still when he plays, he's able to give you some decent upside and decent counting stats. In his last game, he definitely delivered with a double-double in only 23 minutes. So he definitely has that potential that you like so much. Harris has been balling, 50% from the field, doing his thing all across the board, stuff in the stat sheet as normal. Murray had a great game to start off the week. He had a 25, 17, and 5 game, but then he had a triple double after that. So since White's gone down, he's going to get the minutes as we see here, which is great for fantasy owners, just because when he was getting the time before White really came back, he was an absolute monster. So it's good news for a lot of rosters if you're able to have him on your team and rolling. Norman Powell definitely made up for a lackluster first game of the week with a great second game of the week in 37 minutes. He did shoot 57% from the field, hit 2 3-pointers, 24 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, only 2 turnovers. So he delivered Norman Powell type numbers, definitely good things and stuff to look at. Bridges was scaring me for a little bit. He's been off again, on again. He's had a couple of games where he scored 6, 0, 7. He's had 2 games where he scored 7. But over his last couple of games, he looks like he started to find his groove, especially in that game versus the Knicks. He had a great second half, and I know that because I was watching the Knicks game as a Knicks fan. But he was definitely delivering, hitting that 3. He had 3 3-pointers in the game. He had 21 points. He was taking it to the rim pretty good. And if he's able to stay hot, obviously, he's a guy that you love. If you look at next week, he plays 2, 4, 5. So definitely a guy if he's dropped on some rosters, because I know it's been a little frustrating. So as we see, his rostership is down. It's not like at 100% or 90 something like that, even though he has great stats. Definitely someone that you want to lock and load for next week, especially with that good schedule, because again, he's playing 2 is this week, so he gets 30 and 2, but he starts with 4 and 5, so he starts off with a double a back-to-back Tuesday and Wednesday. So that's pretty interesting for a schedule. Gafford, my God, this guy's taking all over Twitter. Everyone's all in love with this guy for fantasy purposes. It's really not that much here. Yes, he gets you a couple of blocks in some of these games, but these stats really aren't that too great. When we look at even a guy like Favors really isn't that far off from what Gafford really is. So if you have shares of Gafford, I definitely would be exiting those shares and picking up something else off of the waiver wire. This is going to be another frustrating, I think, player to own during this stretch, which is Jaren Jackson Jr. He's, like we've seen, come back and been kind of effective, and that has hurt Kyle Anderson's role. But for him, it's really going to be interesting to see how often do they play him and what's the schedule like. He's going to be off on the 30th. He already missed the 25th. If it's just with them benching him every other day or something like that, it's not terrible, but it is annoying, and it does make you have to really evaluate how you can use him, and probably only use him as a streamer where you're picking him up for a game that you're anticipating that he's going to be playing, and even that is a bit of a risk. So those are just things that you have to factor in when you're streaming for guys and when you're looking for guys that you're picking up and looking at guys that you could possibly drop. This is something that's really interesting, is that Trae Young is listed as questionable for Friday's game. We expected him to be out for a little bit longer than this. Now, the good thing is that is the 30th. So he plays the 30th and the 1st, and then he comes back in the 3rd. So if people don't notice this and make the move, you might only face him for 1 game if he does come back at that. So that's definitely something to keep in mind with a guy like Trae Young, is that if he does come back in the middle of the week or comes back tomorrow, last minute, people in next day rosters are going to be screwed, because you really don't know what's going to go on here, and you don't want to open up a spot for a guy that's not going to be there, and it gets real tricky. So Trae Young rosters, you're in a tricky situation. I don't envy you, my friend James, who I'm facing. And then let's just take a quick look here. Interesting. If Clint Capella is out on Onyeka Okongwu, I love Onyeka Okongwu. I wanted him for the Knicks originally. But I would never be able to spell his name. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna go like this. It's man. Okongwu. Okay, let's see what's going on here, buddy. 16, 13, 10. Ah, man, he hasn't really been getting the minutes. I mean, when we saw that he got 32 minutes, he put up great numbers, 13, 11, 2 blocks, solid percentages. He's really not getting the time. I think with everyone back, it's an interesting scenario for him. It's probably not as good of a situation than I would hope for. But if you need an upside waiver wire pick, that's definitely someone to be interested in. Let me just check one thing real quick here. Quarterfinals and semifinals are here. Yeah. Now, if you're in this situation, so you're basically saying that GMs from 6 to 12 are still battling. Some of those teams will probably drop stars. Should we re-add those back to the original seeded team 6 through 12 so that none of the? I think that's hard because if they're picking up regular waiver wire guys that are stopping me from picking up a waiver wire guy, I'm then at a handicap from that. So then if you leave those guys on the waiver, well, now they become part of the pool. So it almost becomes a point where if you're gonna run the 6 through 12 seats, you basically have to tell them they're locked. Like I would lock those teams and let them only use from their rosters. Especially since if it's not for money and it's just 6 through 12, battling for consolation, like rankings and stuff like that, I would lock 6 through 12, let them only play with their rosters as is, and then what I would do is I would let 1 through 6 make their moves, and then as teams get eliminated, I would have them locked. The only reason why is because one, for the people that are playing for money or the people that are playing for championships, it's hard for them to compete when the lower seeds are vulturing up those waiver wire picks that they need. And then let's just say if they're vulturing up the waiver wire picks, but they're dropping a stud, it's like, okay, well, that's the waiver wire guy I would have picked, but now you drop that stud. So, I mean, yes, the only move for me to make is to pick up that stud or to look for another waiver wire pick that may or may not fit my billing. But more often than not, as long as the stud has a reason to be picked up, you will. But that's the other thing. If they're just dropping studs to drop studs, it doesn't make sense. Then definitely you have to lock them and put them back on their teams as well, because that could definitely mess things up. So if it's a case where they're battling and they're just dropping a guy because they need some extra plays, yeah, exactly. Even though they're competing for seventh and eighth ranking and all that, that would be the stipulation I'd put, because in a lot of leagues they don't even give you that. Most leagues it's like consolation brackets are either cut, and I'm in a lot of leagues where the consolation bracket is only locked into whatever roster you have left, and I do that mainly because you don't want 1 through 6 to have to deal with too much shenanigans or nonsense, or like you said, star players being there that shouldn't be there, or these guys rushing to take the best waiver wire guys when I'm in the championship and this guy's competing for 8th place and he's rushing to get this guy, and that screws me over. That's kind of unfun, especially when you're going for a championship. So I would say for those lesser seeds, lock them up, let them play with their rosters as is. It's really not that big of a difference when you're going between 7 and 8. Let's just face facts. A lot of teams by then, they're already defeated in the press, so some of them don't even edit. But realistically, leave it for the 1 through 6 seeds and let them battle it out for the waiver wire picks and lock them as they go. So this way, the teams that are left have the best shots at the best players. So you get the best competition possible. All right. On that note, I plan on doing another one tomorrow. I'll answer some more questions. I'll bring some more players to the table that I like going into the weekend. Some matchups that'll be interesting, and then after that, we'll be doing another edition live on Sunday. And on Sunday, we'll be getting you ready for the finals for some people or the semifinals for the others. So everyone, I want to thank you for your time. I'm sorry that I'm on so late. I wanted to get on much earlier, but the Giants had picked at 10, and then they traded back to 20, and they just doubled the time up. It totally was not what I expected, but I appreciate everyone coming out to watch this edition. I'm glad if I can help anyone. If you have questions, feel free to drop them. You can either drop them in this video, drop them on Instagram, drop them on Twitter. You could direct message us. We answer to the DMs right now. So we're definitely about that life. Realistically, the main goal and the main reason why I do this is because I want to help you guys win your leagues and do the best you can in your league. So definitely, if you have questions, message us. That's the reason why I plan on doing this on Friday and Sunday as well. So this way, any ideas or any players that I see that are interesting or that might be of use to some of you guys, I'll bring them up and let you guys know so you guys can get everything you need in order to win your leagues. And that's what makes us happy at the Daily Sporting, making sure that you guys come out victorious. On that note, I am the talented Mr. Taco. This is the Daily Sporting, and we are out. Peace.
Hey, David and Taco, they bring that heat. All about UFC, way more than a fantasy. Let's see who going toe to toe. Throw down on the mat, check the replay, run it back. We gotta check the stats. Hey, do this every day. We ain't come to play. This is sports talk, and we love talking MMA. Everything fantasy sports. Dopest show that I know. With Electric Dave and talented Mr.